It's Damashe and Michael, just talking tech.
Proper planning prevents piss poor performance. But I do think that there is an alternative version of that. That's something about how poor planning leads to something.
Piss poor, never mind.
Yeah, I really don't remember how it goes though. But yeah, what I said is what I have heard growing up, which is true. Like it comes down to planning. You know, I try to get everybody to understand that. Like it really is sort of just a general thing. You don't have to be a nut about task management and all of that. And you know, I got, 300 projects in OmniFocus or Todoist or things or what, like you don't have to be a nut about it, but still like, especially when something you're doing depends on somebody else, if they're working parts to a situation that don't just require you, like, a good alternative example of this is, say, Mike, with you editing, your shows, for example, you can sit down and decide I'm going to edit this show Monday night when I'm going to publish it Tuesday because you're kind of the only person involved in that workflow.
Right. I could sit down and say, never mind, Damashe, send me your file. I'm going to do it right now after this call, just so it's out of the way, scheduled and in the system. It all depends on how I want to work what I'm working on. If you're interested in any more information, just so you know, you'ronpay.com/DM36 for show notes. Had to throw that in there.
Oh yeah, because I'll totally forget, man.
So Damashe,
but that's an example of okay, we sit down and schedule a time to record, and like those are working pieces, right? So we always try to plan out like when we're going to record to make sure that we're both free, versus me just picking up the phone, today and like, hey Mike, you want to record at 12? I got some free time. Mike's like, no, that don't work. And
it also prevents me from picking up the phone and saying, hey man, I don't know, did you figure out what we're talking about? And let's just not record today. And then you stop and you think, you're like, well. Or sit down, record, get the information down that you wanted to get down, have conversation, turn the show into what you want, and then run with it.
Then we're done. And we're out.
You got that content out there.
Exactly.
So, Damashe, what are you using to keep track of relationships with people?
To be quite honest, man, I have a very hacked together solution.
Me too. Nothing wrong with
it's
that.
a combination of iCloud contacts, which are also being backed up to or synced over to my Google account, my G Suite account. So contacts with some notes about specifics for people, using contact groups to sort of group all specific people, like, these are clients, these are developers, these are, associates, these are people that may be able to help me out with specific types of, so, just using groups to, keep those people organized. And then a combination of that with, important emails and things like that being filed into specific folders, which the nice thing about Gmail is you can apply multiple tags, as they're called in Gmail. So you have emails in multiple folders. And that's about the extent of my relationship management.
Yeah, I have absolutely no, like someone emails me, I will tell you a story about that here in a second. Shout out to you, Teresa. Remind me about Teresa. So someone emails me and they're like, hey, we're talking about this and we're working on this. And then I drop the ball or they drop the ball. And then 6 months down the road or a year down the road, someone reaches back out and says, hey, I'm working on this. And you know that person. You know the name, but you don't remember what you were working on with them or what you were doing with them and how that relationship is. And I'll be honest, sometimes that influences my response time because I'm like, did I piss this person off in the past? Did I drop a ball on something? You know what I'm saying? So I need to come up with a good solution. youronpay.com/DM36. If you're using a very streamlined solution for keeping track of conversations, cross-platform specifically, email and phone, and I'd love to add text message conversations in there, but it's not essential. But if you have some sort of system or solution that you're using, I'd love to either chat with you or leave a comment so we can talk over there. But what I've found so far is Airtable is a tool. I mentioned it in the last podcast episode, so we're recording content on it. And Airtable is a tool that could possibly be a solution, or at least the back end to the solution for an accessible project management solution. So Airtable may be a good solution for either keeping all of your information together for contacts, or at least be a good solution for the back end. What I'm using Airtable right now for is so if you join Blind Employment Solutions, if you go to blindemployment.org and you opt into the email list, you are added to, or you're presented with the opportunity to join the Facebook group. And if you are interested in joining the Facebook group, there are 3 questions that we ask you to answer. The first of which is required, and the second 2 are optional. And for the longest time, we were copying and pasting all that data into a Google form, and then taking that data from a Google form and leveraging that data to get to know people in the group more. And I knew there had to be a different solution, hopefully better, to get access to information about specific people. I kept hearing Airtable mentioned on a few different podcasts, and I decided that I wanted to check it out with not very high hopes of accessibility, but I figured that maybe this would be a good solution for trying to figure out how to get access to information. Damashe? Now that we're talking about this, so how much of a headache would it be to just ask people those 3 questions on the next page? You see what I'm saying?
You can totally do that.
And then just drop that data. That way, number 1, even if they choose not to join the Facebook group, we still give them the opportunity to answer those 3 questions. And then they're tied to a name and email
useful.
address.
Yeah, that would be useful, because that was the one problem with a few of the people that we had, is that they didn't want to join the Facebook group, so they never answered the questions because they never saw them.
All right, so add that to whatever project management service you're using now. Oh. Because I don't know why I didn't even think about that until we were sitting down talking about it. I'm like, I manually copied all this
time, was there a way to do it so that we could have them answer the questions on the site, and then have those, have that trigger to Facebook or something like that? And I think, however, the way I phrased the question at that time, the answer was like, no, you can't do that.
Because you had phrased it, can we get the data to come from Facebook straight over to the Google Docs document? And at that point, with that workflow, there wasn't a way to capture that data in the group. But if we change the workflow around a little and use Gravity Forms to manage everything, capture name and email address, send that to Airtable,
and if they don't
and then
answer
attach
the
that
questions,
to the card.
Yeah, that was actually, so the actual problem was that we couldn't send people to the Facebook group and be sure that they had answered the questions.
And actually, we could,
but we could do with Gravity Forms is have it set up so that if they don't answer the 3 questions, then they don't get a link emailed to them to join the Facebook group. So that still puts up that barrier of entry. Oh, I remember what it was though. The actual problem was, and I guess we could leave the shit. How do we deal with that though? The problem was the people who drive by to the Facebook group was the issue. It wasn't anything on our end. It was
right. But I got 12 pending members right now that probably came through the email address. If not, then that's still less data that we have to copy and paste over.
I mean, I'm in total agreement with you.
Because, if we could set up an internal form to just go to those questions too.
Yeah, I mean, if they drive by join the Facebook group, or they get invited by somebody in the group already or something.
And my goal is to get them out of the Facebook group into email.
Jeez, man, did you see this shit Facebook was doing?
No. I've been busy this weekend. Did they do something? What happened?
I mean, they haven't done anything new that I heard about.
I'm like, wait. I thought something else happened. So have I seen some of the shit going on? Yeah, but
you seen the thing about the VPN app?
Yeah. Paying people $20 a pop or a month just to install it and give them root access to the phone, pretty much.
So a very funny, a very insightful statement was made about that. I can't remember who made it, but I think he was like a lawyer or something like that. And he said it is not legally possible for most individuals to understand what they're agreeing to with those terms. Because one of the arguments that people were making for Facebook was that, well, people agreed to do it, even though, yes, technically they were breaking Apple's developer certificate rules. So they were going to get that yanked anyway, regardless.
Right.
So hands down, they just completely violated the terms of service for those certificates. But other people, like me was like, well, that's just a horrible thing for Facebook to do. Whereas on the flip side, people were like, well, people agreed to do it and they were getting paid for it. And a very insightful statement that a guy made was that, it's theoretically impossible for your average person to understand what they're agreeing to. And it's because most people really don't have a understanding of how valuable the information you're giving Facebook. They're giving you $20 a month.
Right. And they don't understand that I could go and spend $20 a day to get ads in front of you where you'll be willing to spend more money with me. So your $20 a month that you're getting paid from Facebook, they're making on you hand and fist. Like every day they're making $20 for every $20 they give you for. So why isn't it the other way? Why aren't people like, hey, why? I don't know how to say what I'm saying. You know what I said, though.
Yeah. I get what you're saying, though. That's the whole point. Like, you start getting to this whole tangled mess of how much is Facebook making off of this information? How much information are you actually giving Facebook is the other question, right? A lot of people don't understand that. You're letting them see everything you do on your device at that point, because you've basically given them what, like you said, what amounts to root access.
Without their permission. Like, we're asking you these 3 questions. We're saying, hey, answer these 3 questions. Yeah, we're going to keep it in a database. Yeah, we'll probably use it to tailor content to better answer questions that you might have, or to better tailor content towards you. But you gave us the information. We didn't steal from you. I mean,
it's not us taking advantage of the fact. It's not me giving a certificate. It's not like me saying, hey, go install this app on your computer so I can see, what sites you browse to. And then I'm building a dossier on you basically off of that information. And you don't have a comprehension of what information I'm actually getting. Like, that's the problem, is people really don't comprehend the information they're giving up every day. Which is why I stress so much to people inside of BE 101. Like, it may seem like a slimy or a sort of slightly dishonest thing to do, to say, hey, I'll give you a free PDF with my tips on whatever for your email address. To me, and again, like I said, it had to be explained to me in a way that dissociated the way that some people choose to use that to, if you feel like the content you're giving them is valuable, their email address is valuable to me as a business owner, because it allows me to directly communicate with you, with potential customers. So if I'm giving them something in exchange that is valuable, just as valuable to them as their email address is to me, then it's a fair exchange. But everybody understands what they're getting. You're giving me your email address, which means I'm going to email you, right? I mean, that should be spelled out in terms of service. I'm going to email you if you give me your email address. Also, I'm going to give you this document of these tips or this video that I expect is going to help you, and you didn't pay me for it except you gave me an email address.
I don't have anything else to add, except for I do want to loop back a little bit to what Damashe was just saying a minute ago and say, that's why you say click here to allow me to follow up with you via email.
Mm-hmm.
Transparency and communication.
GDPR. If you're GDPR compliant, I think you're okay for the most part.
Yeah.
But most people ain't working on the scale that a Facebook or a Google or Amazon is working either.
Yeah. Or YouTube. Oh. Well, I guess that's Google or Alphabet or whatever you want to call them this week.
Yeah, just as a side note, Google did get caught with their hand in the cookie jar too, using their certificate. So it's not, and I'm not giving them a pass for that, but
there's no need to repeat the same thing we just talked about. Like, it's the same thing. It goes down to $20. Is your they're turning around and making money off of that. Like,
what people don't get though, and I guess I want to clarify this, at least in case it does make it into the show, because it might not. Right. But if it does make it into the show, what I want to clarify is, like, I'm not giving Google a pass. Yeah, Mike's right. We don't need to repeat the whole thing, because the same concepts apply to Google. Google tends not to, at least, well, Facebook makes a lot of news for what they do. I'm not going to say Google doesn't practice some of the same ways that Facebook does, although I choose to, or at least from what I see, Google is not nearly as indifferent to public opinion and what should be right, what was considered right and wrong, what's moral and what's not moral. when it comes to tracking people. Like it's spelled out for you in their terms of service, what they're going to do and what they're going to do with your information. Facebook, my issue with Facebook personally is that they continuously seem to just not give a fuck about what they're doing with people's data and how they're taking advantage of people.
And because they have so much data on information or so much data on people, they just,
They just do what they, I mean, they're huge. Like it's sort of like the whole, not to take this down that road, but it's sort of like the whole too big to fail idea of Wall Street, right? These banks screwed up with investments and things that they did, but the government came along and bailed them out because it would have been a lot more trouble for the country as a whole if those banks just collapsed. You know, if JP Morgan, I don't know if they was even in the middle of that, but you know, if the big banks, you know, that run the financial district would have collapsed, we all would have been out on the street. Everybody, I mean, literally everybody would have been out on their ass if the government didn't come through and bail them out. Facebook to me seems to have this concept internally, or at least for some of their people. Everybody at Facebook can't be terrible, but the people who get to make the decisions at Facebook seem to have the idea that they're too big for anybody to do anything about them. And the point was brought up that had, you know, let's say me and Michael had an app on the store and we used our internal developer certificate to do what Facebook was doing, not only would our company, certificate have been yanked, which is what happened to Facebook. But also our apps, any apps that me and Michael had on the store from the DM, you know, app company incorporated would have also have been yanked from the store. Right. Cause we're little. Who gives a shit? Right. But can Apple really afford to yank Facebook's apps out of their store? Can they really do that? They could, but can they afford to do it?
So, to bring it back around to tech, since we're not going to go down that path, we won't be installing certificates on your device because we will be asking for your permission for all of your information. And, so.
And we're going to keep track of it in Airtable, possibly, maybe.
Ask me about Teresa.
Oh, man. So, yeah, what about Teresa, though? Because you mentioned Teresa earlier.
So, interestingly enough, yesterday I got an email. Some people in our closer communities know that over the weekend I went to the state capitol and legislated for accessible prescription labeling services to be required by all pharmacies with the American Council of the Blind of Oregon. And that was the first experience I had going to speak to lawmakers for our state. And, you know, I had a great experience and definitely recommend it for anyone who has the opportunity to go try it. However, when I returned home yesterday, I received an email from Teresa, so thanks, Teresa, and she's like, hey, so I just got done talking to James, who's the president. See, James, I didn't call you John. And that wasn't edited. Oh, no. Kept calling him John all weekend. Anyway, she sent me an email that says, hey, me and James just got done talking, and he told me how he met this great individual and how he was able to feel my energy and pretty much explained who I am in real life to Teresa. And Teresa goes, so I've never met Michael, but I've heard his podcast and I listen to it on a regular basis. I'm part of his email list, and whenever he emails me, I get messages, and I've looked into some of his courses. And that just blew me away when she reached out and goes, congratulations, and, you know, it congratulated me for becoming a member of the ACB, and also she's also part of the editor for the newsletter of the American Council of the Blind of Oregon. And of course, that made me jump over to the website and start, you know, looking into ways that we can improve some of the stuff. So, it was just an interesting way to build a relationship with someone who I've never met, but others have met me, and the podcast kind of precedes me, and it kind of was a feel-good moment, if that makes sense. And if I would have had a Airtable, I would have been like, oh, this is who Teresa is, because Teresa and I have had conversations in the past. But if you ask me, what have you and Teresa talked about in the past? I'll be honest, I don't remember. I know you, Teresa. That makes sense.
Yeah, you remember the name and you recognize it when you see it, but you don't have any sort of recollection of details of past
aside from
interactions.
more recent conversations. Because ironically enough, her and I have been talking over the past month and a half or so. But her and I also talked a year or so ago as well. And you know how it can go. So good solutions for keeping contacts straight. yourownpay.com/DM36. Let us know in the comments. Right now we're exploring Airtable. I do like that you can export each contact. It's like a card. So any data that you save in a row can be exported and or shared with someone else as well. So that's pretty cool if you ever need to keep track of stuff or play with APIs.
Yeah. Airtable, I've heard some interesting uses for Airtable. And essentially what Airtable is, because Mike, I don't think you ever told people what it actually was.
Oops, but that's how we are.
That's how we roll, man. We're going to tell you what it is now that we
Go figure it out. Google it. No.
There's already thousands of words that have been written about what it is. It's essentially a database.
Yeah. It's a way to keep track of data.
So think about, and the way somebody explained it, and I'm probably going to muddle this up a little bit, but it's sort of like an Excel spreadsheet crossed with the functionality of online database systems like MySQL or SQL, SQL, any other databases. So it's sort of like taking the capabilities of Excel, pairing that with, a database management system, something like MySQL, which, powers most of the online content.
Part spreadsheet,
CMSs.
part database, and entirely flexible.
There you go. See? Haha. We got it.
Had to steal their tagline, Oh.
Hey, well, but that explains what I was trying to say. Part spreadsheet, part database. Yeah.
Yeah.
Summarizes a whole lot better than I was doing.
There you go. Yeah. I had to Google it.
Yeah. Somebody like Desiree probably wrote that.
Probably.
So yeah, it just took you 5 minutes to explain what you are. I'm going to tell you this.
Yeah. I'll tell it to you in 4 words. No, 6 words.
Part spreadsheet, part database, totally flexible.
Yeah.
I like it.
Entirely flexible. Yeah, there you go. Oh, wow. So yeah, I don't have any clue what we're going to talk about next week. We're shooting up.
We'll figure it out between now and then.
Yeah. If you're interested, let us know. I'm at Payon, PAYOWN on Twitter, and he's
at Damashe, DAMASHE. Wait, am I still on Twitter? I don't even know.
All right, that's it. We'll leave with that mumble.
You've been listening to Your Own Pay Podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episode, visit yourownpay.com/cast for exclusive content and to contact us today. We're eager to hear your thoughts and about how you're making this podcast your own. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon. The Your Own Pay Podcast, yourownpay.com.